I'm really extremely happy today to be associated here. Why? Because right now I am heading Telangana Forest Department, and let me tell you that Telangana is one of the leading state in the country as far as the massive planting program, that is Telangana Ko Haritharam, which we have been doing for last a decade, and the highest number of plants planted in the country is Telangana. And if you see the report that is published by FSI Dehradun, the highest increase in the green cover in the country is only in Telangana. With this note, uh, I would also like to give certain information about the scenario of wildlife in Telangana, because most of the children are there, and many of us also are not aware that what kind of landscapes, assets, the kind of wildlife that we have in Telangana, because not much of a publicity has been given to these areas. In Telangana, we have around 9 wildlife sanctuaries, 2 tiger reserves. We have 3 zoos in Telangana. You are all aware that Nehru Zoological Park, Nehru Zoo, is one of the premier zoological park in the country. We have 2 tiger reserves, as one is in Amrabad, the other one in Kawal. Just now I was talking to Dr.Y.V.Jhala. Way back he visited those tiger reserves. And let me tell you, if you get, some of you get time, lot of initiative we are taking in these 2 places, that is Kawal Tiger Reserve in Amrabad. Although as far as wildlife management is concerned, Telangana may not be the leader in the country, but yes, lot of initiative have been taken for last couple of years, and I request all of you to visit these 2 places, maybe Amrabad Tiger Reserve and Kawal Tiger Reserve. Now, we'll also hear Dr. Jhala regarding technology in conservation of big carnivores. And as you are, we also have tigers in Amrabad. In the state, we have around 26 tigers right now. And the issues, those are now day in and out we face, is man-animal conflicts, which is to be increased in days to come. I also would like to hear this very carefully, that what all we can take home from this talk, which will help us in better management of our protected areas, wildlife areas. But certain initiative which we took for the first time in the state is like relocation of villages from the core area, which is just started here. And in order to create those inviolate areas where we are able to manage the wildlife in a better way. Now, as far as WWF Hyderabad chapter is concerned, we have been associated with them for last more than 3 decades now, whether it was erstwhile combined state or even in Telangana. So many activities are being taken up by WWF in coordination with Forest Department. They have been helping us not only in census of all those carnivores, but they are also helping in training our staff, the local people, the children sitting here, all the children, several kind of training capsules are being provided by WWF. Apart from that, we are also involved in taking up programs in our KVR park. And then recently they also did some, one exercise in Hyderabad, where a lot of people were involved in what do you call that, city nature challenge, which was one of its unique exercise that was taken up in Hyderabad, and many people, around 30,000, what do you call that, observations were made by them in Hyderabad. Is a massive exercise. Now, we also look forward for them. They are helping us in our management of corridor, how do you make a corridor profile, and we'll be looking forward in days to come to collaborate with them. So with these words, I would like to thank Dr. Rupert Farida here for giving me this opportunity to be here. Thank you so much.
Right? So we're talking about extinction of species. Yeah. As you know, dinosaurs don't exist on this planet anymore. Right? And there are new species evolving every day. So extinction is just like life and death. It happens all the time. Then why are we worried about extinction? Species which evolve on this planet are always going to get extinct. Nothing lives forever. Right? But today, we try to stop extinctions. And the reason is that the current rates of extinction on Mother Earth are about 100 to 300 times higher than the background levels. Okay? What is it? It's just like a crisis which happened 65 million years ago when a meteorite struck our planet and we lost the dinosaurs. That's called a mass extinction. Today, we are in the age of a mass extinction. And the reason for this mass extinction are us sitting in this room, okay? Human beings. We evolved about 200,000 years ago, okay? 2 million years ago. Okay? But our impact on this planet started as soon as humans discovered fire. Till that point in time, people lived in harmony with nature. As soon as we discovered fire, we started changing the habitat around us to make it more and more favorable for us and less favorable for the conspecifics who survive on this planet, all the other species. But after the Industrial Revolution, this extinction crisis has become exponential. It's growing very rapidly. And as I said, there are almost 300 times at higher rates than what the background levels of deaths. It's like a pandemic, the COVID, causing deaths in humans. Humans are causing deaths among species. Okay? And that's why we need to stop our negative impacts on the planet. And many of us have this profession, which we call wildlife conservation, which tries to stem our negative impacts on the planet on biodiversity. So these are some of the species which humans are responsible to have caused extinction of. India, luckily, is endowed with a very rich biodiversity. These are just the ungulates of India. Ungulates are animals which walk on the tips of their toes. Ungli ke upar chalte hain. Okay? So these are all the ungulates that we have today. These are the large carnivores. A carnivore which weighs more than 20 kilograms is known as a large carnivore. So all these are large carnivores. And we lost this animal after India became independent. That's what is this animal? The cheetah. Okay? And the government of India has brought it back again last year. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about that. The most difficult taxa to conserve are large carnivores. Now, large carnivores are at the apex of the food chain. They are on the top of the food pyramid. That means that all the other trophic levels below them have to be very well functioning. They should be intact for these animals to actually exist and do well in an ecosystem. Okay? So if you have large carnivores in an ecosystem like the tiger, the lion, the leopard, okay, snow leopard, then you know that the entire ecosystem is doing well. And that is the philosophy of the government of India in investing in large projects like Project Tiger. So most of the money of the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change goes to conserve tigers. But it is not a single species conservation program. It is a biodiversity conservation program. Because if you conserve the top carnivore up there, you're making sure that everything below it is also doing well. So that is the philosophy of Project Tiger. And if you select the iconic species like the tiger, then The Prime Minister is interested, ministers are interested, bureaucrats are interested, because the tiger is charismatic. It's considered to be a flagship, and it acts as an umbrella for conserving all other species. So you can garner resources, you can garner legislation, you can make laws for such species. Nobody is going to give you money to save a cockroach. The cockroach is equally important as the tiger, right? As both species, okay? But money will come for tigers, but if you can use that money to do conservation of everything else, it is great. Okay. But carnivores are also very difficult to conserve because they conflict with human requirements. They eat our livestock and sometimes they eat us as well. Okay. So this is a major problem with conserving large carnivores in your neighborhood. And most forest officers who are sitting here will agree with me, because when you have a problem tiger around, you have a huge problem on your hands, especially if it's a man-eater. Luckily for us, India, okay, has a religious and cultural tolerance towards all forms of life. This is ingrained in our ethos, in our religion and culture. If you contrast this, this is because of the religious beliefs of Eastern religions besides compared to the Western religions. The Eastern religions of Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, no disrespect to any religion, but these religions talk about humans being custodians of nature. That means humans have to take care of nature. Compared to the Western religions which talk about dominion of nature, that human is the superior creator of God and everything else is for him to rule and utilize for his benefit. So this basic difference has allowed India to still have this entire biodiversity despite our population pressure, despite our poverty. Okay? So this is the major thing. And you know, the world says that the first protected area, a national park, was Yellowstone National Park. Okay, but Yellowstone was created, I think, in 1857 or 1858. But we had protected areas in India at the time of Ashoka, known as Abhayaranyas. So India can boast of a rich culture of conservation far beyond when most of the world was in a barbaric state. Okay. So we have a lot of, even the legislation and the policies and all that were in India for looking at how to live in forests. The Aranyakas specified rules for ascetics to use forest resources so you wouldn't deplete them. Chanakya was the first one to have actually laid down policy and law for utilizing natural resources. So in Arthashastra you can find all that. So India has been a leader at conservation. But today, you see India is shining. From 1992 to 2022, this is the picture, a satellite picture of India taken at night. And what does it show? Night lights. What does night light indicate? Electricity. What does electricity indicate? Urbanization and increase in development. And at the same time, our population has gone from less than a billion to 1.4 billion. Okay? And we are maintaining a GDP of 1.85 trillion US dollars. All this comes at a cost. Our footprint on the planet is increasing day by day. All right. So if you have consequences of irresponsible development, you can see what all happens if you do not develop in consonance with nature. As Mahatma Gandhi said, there is enough for human need, but not enough for human greed. Okay. So there is this enough on this planet, to sustain all of us despite our density and our poverty. But if we are greedy, we are going to lose it all. So the problem with our conservation started with the colonial time of the British era. These guys brought in the Western ethos of dominion over nature and started eradicating our biodiversity from the roots. They've offered bounties. I think Divya Bhanu Singh must have talked about the history when he came and talked here in the last series of how the British depleted most of our wildlife resources, and even we Indians picked up the Western culture of Shikar was always there. It was a part of our culture. Ramchandra ji went and shot the mrig to, that's how the whole Ramayana started. So hunting was a part of our culture and ethos, but over hunting was never a part of it. It was always regulated and only certain parts of the society did it. But here, everybody was allowed to kill and there were bounties offered by the government for killing wildlife. Modern ethos or conservation started in the 1970s. As we know, conservation today, the legislation and everything came into effect from 1970 onwards, mostly due to our Prime Minister, Madam Indira Gandhi, who had a special love for nature And it is her personal initiative which led to these laws, because she had the majority like Narendra Bhai Modi has today. She had it in those days. And during her times, of course, doing conservation by any government is a very difficult task unless the leader themselves are involved and they have a passion for doing conservation. It's very difficult to do conservation. So all these laws, the Wildlife Protection Act, Project Tiger in 1973, Forest Conservation 1980, these are the backbones of conservation policy in India. And that time, I was working with Dr. Rajesh Gopal, who was the director of Kanha Tiger Reserve, and later on, he became the director of Project Tiger. There was no National Tiger Conservation Authority. And we had experimented and developed a technique in Madhya Pradesh, covering about 20,000 square kilometers, of enumerating a population estimation on large landscapes. And readily, when the Tiger Task Force was appointed by the then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, this lady, Sunita Narayan, down-to-earth lady, she was not a biologist, but, a scientist, all right, looking more at toxicology and food contamination and all that, but a very strong-willed lady. So she headed the Tiger Task Force and has come up with this report, Joining the Dots. It's readily available on the net, and if any of you want to do conservation as a profession, youngsters especially, you should download this report and read it, because it tells us how to do conservation in a country where there are poor people, there's a lot of wildlife, and there is wildlife in your neighborhood. How to strike a balance between communities and wildlife. The Joining the Dots is a gospel of being able to implement this. So this lady and this gentleman here, Pradipto Ghosh, who was the Secretary of Environment at that time, he gave us full rein, and we implemented countrywide monitoring of tigers from 2006 onwards. And since then, every 4 years, I have been leading this exercise from the Wildlife Institute of India in collaboration with the National Tiger Conservation Authority and the State Forest Departments. Several NGO partners, WWF has been a major NGO partner in conducting this exercise across India. And we have seen that when the official figure of tigers was 3,500, in reality there were only about 1,400 tigers left in India. And this sent shivers down everybody's spine. We changed policy. We created the National Tiger Conservation Authority, the Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. All this change happened because we showed that the tiger populations are depleting in our country because of poaching. And since then, after implementing all these reforms, I'll talk about those reforms, our population has been steadily increasing, and the last census of 2022 released by the Prime Minister, both these reports have been released by Prime Minister Narendra Bhai Modi, and you can see that we have close to about 3,600 odd tigers. Okay. Now, nobody can count tigers exactly. Okay. This number, for students especially, has an error margin. It's an estimate. Okay. Because it's not an exact count, but it's an estimate with a confidence limit. It tells you how confident are you in actually estimating this. And you see that the population of tigers in India is increasing at a steady pace of about 6% per year, which is very good for a large carnivore population. It answers these questions here, which I'm not going to read out. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is what Farida talked about, the Guinness Book of World Record. It is not my work. I happen to be the lead scientist at that time, but it is a concerted effort by all the state forest departments, all the teams on the ground, all the NGOs, and a lot of university students, mostly done by forest guards. Okay, so this effort, which has given India the Guinness World Record as the largest wildlife survey, involves about 44,000 people who did this effort. You can see this, 300,000 square kilometers surveyed. All the forests where tigers can occur in 21 states have been surveyed, and we deployed close to about 32,000 cameras, okay, with 47 million wildlife images. It's a huge amount of data, okay? And this data has to be then processed to come up with this. Now this, you can imagine 47 million images to be seen and done. This is sambar, this is cheetal, this is nilgai, this is chausinga, this is tiger, this is leopard. Takes a huge amount of effort. So we resort to what is known as technology, okay? And one of the technologies which we resort to is called M-stripes.